What is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we have a great show for you planned. Again, we have tons, so stick around. We'll be right back with all of your current events and live calls at 2244-006273. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. What is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we're going to go over a ton of stuff in a short amount of time, so if you're new here, remember you can go over to marfooglenews.com, and you can not only sign up for alerts and notifications directly from us. Again, you can use that through Chrome or other browsers. You can also find our entire bibliography of every source. If we show you a picture, an article, a tweet, a video, a document, it's all going to be there on our website. Now, when you go over there, it's very easy to navigate. You will see, of course, Marfoogle News up at the top, and then you will see a bunch of thumbnails. Today's thumbnail is they just took over. This takes the cake, literally, and then Space Force. Once you click on that, you'll find a full list of all of our sources. That way you know exactly where we got this information from. On top of that, there is an overflow section. Once you hit a big yellow bar, that is all the stuff that we could not fit into the show or the sensitive stuff. So make sure to go down there. There is a plethora of really good information. Again, some of the information is the stuff that they just don't want people talking about. So I don't know. I think I just turned 13 right there. I apologize. And then on the right side, if you do want to support us through any of the affiliates, over on the right side, all of those boxes are affiliate links, which essentially means if you do go and spend your money there, most of them are veteran-owned or family-owned businesses, you end up not only supporting us, but you end up getting a discount. So thank you guys, anybody who does do that. I do have a really great update, and it's probably actually going to change. As of this morning, it looks like we have helped Cars for Heroes raise at least $900, and 2 Foogle fam members have so far donated cars. Now, I don't know how that works and how they're confirmed and, until they pick them up, but that is in one day. So that is pretty amazing. So again, on the website, you can also find the marfooglenews.com/C4H if you want to go and support. All right, and then let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. And again, I don't know if there wasn't an update since this morning, right?
No, not yet. That was early this morning, so probably a lot more.
All right.
And hello, Foogle fam. Hello, Adam. And it's good to see everybody doing just fine.
So we have tons of very exciting stories today, which is not always a good thing. It says a chunk of metal fell from the sky over Maine and almost hit a police officer's, officials say. They think it was from a passing plane. Now, I know what Dex was thinking when he saw this. I did not tell the whole Foogle fam. I actually did tell Hank and Rhiannon from the Facebook group when I met them in person on Friday. But on Friday afternoon, a small gear mirror, fell off a plane and landed right next to me. Dex, did you think of that when you saw this?
That's exactly what I thought about.
So I ended up first calling the local news stations, and they were like, "Oh, okay." And then I tried to call the FAA, and I left a message because I was halfway from the pump to the actual gas station, and all of a sudden just a big pop sound popped right next to me. And I was like, nobody's going to believe me. I looked around and there were 3 people that were all there. One at the pump says that just came off that plane, and it was a little tiny Cessna, and I was right next to the airport. So, I mean, the Cessna wasn't that high. Even if it did hit me, it probably wouldn't have killed me. But it was a little mirror about that big, and it fell. It fell so close, I thought it came out of my pocket. That's how it fell right next to my foot. So I think that this happens actually more than people know, and it's pretty scary. The thing that fell off of this one was much scarier. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you and I researched it, and it was called a gear mirror because it looked exactly like what you showed me the picture of. So,
but the gear mirror was bent, and like like the gas station mirrors, how they're warped, so you can see a whole lot more. Like they're warped, so you can see all of the aisles. This one was flat, and it was only about that big. At first, I thought somebody threw it at me, like they chucked it like a frisbee. And then the 2 other people that were around, one of them actually worked at Boeing, said, I work there and I know a bunch of folks with Cessnas. I'm going to go take it back. We pasted it back together and it was complete. It broke into 3 pieces, and I ended up taking pictures, and I took a video, and I got the gentleman's number. And then I even went in and asked, like, hey, can you guys get that footage? They said they couldn't, but the FAA could ask them to get the footage, or the local news stations could. So I thought it was pretty crazy. I thought it was, and then the older gentleman that was there and saw it says, you need to go buy a lotto ticket. So it was, I ended up buying a $2 scratch ticket, but he ended up buying a lotto ticket too, because it was a lucky day. And then I went out and met Rhiannon and Hank, and I told them about it. And it's like, nobody will believe you on that. But I'm seeing that this is actually happening more than people think. And mostly it's things that just kind of pop off the plane, and it's usually in a metropolis area that has an airport. It's really not that crazy if you think about it. When things fall off these little Cessnas or these little planes, they can cause big problems. It says a chunk of metal fell from the sky over Maine and almost hit a police officer, officials say. They think it was from a passing plane. Now, this thing is massive. If this fell and hit somebody, it would have killed them. The mirror would have flapped in the wind, and it probably would. I mean, it's not like I've heard from that height, it was about 400 or 500 feet, that if you drop a penny from like the Space Needle, it could take somebody out. But if it's a mirror that has, it's light and flat, that it's going to flop around and stop. But this thing, I would not want to be hit by this. A piece of metal fell from the sky over Maine and almost hit a police officer's, official said, adding that they believe it came from a passing plane. A sleeve-like object, which weighs 6 or 7 pounds, fell from the sky on Monday, Maine's Department of Public Safety said. It said it landed at a high velocity, approximately 6 to 8 feet away from the Maine Capitol police screener, Craig Donahue. I just wanted to see if I can, hold on. Yeah, so let's see if I can pull this up right here. Yeah, so I put a, what do you call it? I put a $5 bill for reference there, and you probably can't see it, huh? It was a mirror like this, and then that was a $5 bill, so it wasn't too big. And then I ended up getting the witnesses' information. But this is kind of what, I don't know if you can see this. This is a mirror, a gear mirror on the side of the wing. And that's what we think it is. If I turn down the brightness here, then you'll probably be able to see it. But yeah, so a mirror like that. I mean, like, how crazy is that? To think that things like this happen on a regular basis. It says the FAA has launched an investigation while attempting to locate the source of the part, which is likely from a large airliner or international route. So his wasn't from a tiny Cessna. His was from a huge plane. And that, I don't know what kind of part is that. If you know what this part is, let me know in the comments down below. If you're a pilot and you know what it is, let me know. You can also give me a call at 224-400-MARF if you have almost been hit by something, or have a crazy airliner story of something falling off a plane, or just a sighting or some crazy military news. Let me know at 224-400-6273. All right, and then also Space Force takes over all military satellite communications now. Before we talk about that, I just want to welcome Crypto Dread. Thank you. I also have a quick announcement about a passing in the Marfoogle family. And I would like to just take a 10-second moment of silence. Chronoholic M, his wife popped in under his name and said that he has passed, that he was a regular Foogle fam member. You guys probably knew. And she said that that he will not be joining us in chat because he did pass away. So I am very saddened to hear that, and I've done shoutros with him in it a bunch of times. I can't even name how many times. So he was definitely a regular. Obviously, you guys heard of him in chat. So just a moment of silence for Chronoholic, and then if they send to the wife, if you are watching, if you send his info, if you want to put pictures up, we would love to show his pictures and any pertinent information and give him a proper send-off. So again, that was Chronoholic M in chat, has passed away. So, and then Space Force takes over all military satellite communications. Now, this isn't even the main story tonight. We have much crazier than this. But this definitely has some weird stuff to it. So it says the Army transferred some of its satellite operations to the Space Force on Monday, marking the latest move to recognize and grow the youngest military branch. It says in addition to control the communication satellites, 500 people will be transferred from the Army's Space and Missile Defense Command, based in Huntsville, Alabama, and will now answer to Shriver Space Force Base in Colorado as part of the expansion. It says this historic transfer from the Army to the Space Force will mark the first time all Department of Defense military satellite communication functions have been consolidated under a single military service. So just want to point out that they've never had one service control all of this, and that same last sentence that we just read could also be something that's not very a good thing. As far as you take out that one service, then you take out all of our satellite command. Maybe they are doing it on purpose. Maybe there is a threat to our satellites, or maybe there will be, if you know what I mean. So we don't know what's actually going on. There are many stories that have come out in the last 48 hours, so stay tuned because we're going to talk about, of course, the FBI alert that just went out, essentially warning of us of something horrible and all sorts of other stuff going on. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, I was going to say the real BP Earthwatch stopped in, and he just said Vlad said their first target will be the SATs. It's a good reminder because we've talked about that. So when we think about these SATs, and as we go through this article, remember that quote.
Yeah, and and Vlad said that. By the way, hi BP Earthwatch, nice to see you here, and as it's always a pleasure to have you. And so BP is completely on top of that. So satellites have been talked about for the last 3 years, and there's been a lot of little pieces to that puzzle, but they are obviously testing. We have covered the satellites that have arms on them that can fly up to another satellite, clamp it down, and crush it. Vlad has been testing actual lasers that can blind satellites. So same with Xi and his country. They've been doing the same thing. They have basically been doing this a ton of stuff regarding our satellites. So there's been a lot of threats. I wonder if that has anything to do with why they're transferring the satellites over to Space Force. And remember, Space Force was laughed at when they first did it, and that was because of the current president. Whatever the current president said, the media would say the opposite. And even if you hate the guy, you probably noticed that. It didn't matter what. Well, Space Force is still here, and it's expanding, and it's getting bigger. Obviously, space is going to be a bigger part in the future. That was, when they first put Space Force in, that sent a tingle up my spine because I knew that something else was up. Within a couple months, the Department of Defense, I don't think it was John Kirby, it was somebody else. It was a Department of Defense official, not only confirmed that directed energy was real, announced that Vlad and Xi had weaponized space. And they had 3 Space Force commanders, which now is a proper branch of the military, say that we are at war in space. This is not a quote from some, tabloid. This is a quote from the top brass in Space Force. Whether it's true, that's up to you to decide, but my gut says that there's definitely something going on up above our heads. There has been for years, decades, if not, who knows how long, ancient aliens and ancient civilizations. So who knows? So that is very interesting, and we'll keep on it. Hello, operator. If you turn the official Space Force ball cap upside down, it makes the Baphomet. So yeah, I actually saw that on Jacob Israel's channel. He did a whole video on that and basically talked about how that it upside down it looks like that. I didn't notice that at all. So that was pretty shocking to me. Johnny Harmon, happiness is nice, joy is better. Stay prayed up, everybody. That is awesome. Miranda McGuire, thank you so much for supporting us. It looks like before the show even started. I appreciate your support, and thank you. 20 Prosperity 12, thank you as well for the massive support of our channel. I appreciate that, and thank you. Let's go to the next piece here. We have Xi's space plane remains in orbit, but clues emerge from recovered launch debris. It says a Chinese reusable experimental spacecraft remains in in orbit nearly 2 weeks after launch, despite passing directly over its expected landing site early Monday. The reusable experimental spacecraft launched from Jiuquan in the Gobi Desert atop of the Long March 2F rocket August 4th has remained in 346 by 593 kilometer orbit, inclined by 50 degrees since launch. I like how they actually put that, like they're writing and they're like, how can I make 10,000 words? They're like, it has remained in 346 by 593 kilometer orbit, inclined by 50 degrees. So in your head, you're supposed to envision like, oh, it's like this. I'm sorry, but I did not get that. It says, according to tracking by the U.S. Space Force 18th Space Defense Squadron, which we've actually talked about that squadron. They cover a lot, or they are the ones who do the actual statement on this. We covered this last time. They had some random thing that was coming down and possibly, could have hit the U.S. or other places. It says, though China has released no details of the mission, there are clear differences from the spacecraft's apparent first outing in September 2020. The new mission orbit is more than eccentric than that of the first, when the spaceplane spent 2 days in an orbit 331 by 447 kilometers. It says the previous mission saw the spaceplane release a small test satellite emitting S-band radio signals. The sat was possibly similar to the small Banxing satellites released by previous Shenzhou crewed missions to make observations. It says this time 18 SDS tracked the 7 objects in orbit along the space plane, NORAD 53357, while some of the debris from the Long March 2F second stage, one or both of a pair of unknown objects, could be inspector satellites to track the main spacecraft. It says that the spacecraft is also spending a much longer time in orbit, passing up a good opportunity for landing. At 0700 Monday, the spaceplane was due to pass over the Loop Nor base in Xinjiang, the reported site for the 2020 mission landing, and the spacecraft remained in orbit, however, tracking from 18 SDS confirms. So what do you guys think that this possibly may be? In fact, if BP Earthwatch is still here, what do you think about this this story and what's going on there? Now we have Eric Bolt. What's your opinion on the C-Day dollar crash coming on December 13th? I don't really go for any of the dates, but I don't know where that date comes from. So I have not. I've heard so many different dates over the last 5 years. But if it's somebody that, is out there as far as my peers or constituents, then I don't know of enough information to comment on it. Tinfoil hat, what did I miss? Essentially that Space Force took over all satellite communications, which is very new, at least. Tribulation starts in September of this year, I believe, says Trial. Blue Moon, I am not joking, says thank you, Vovo. Says Space Force HQ is near the Denver airport. Under Denver is a mile-deep aquifer that could have its own climate. Mighty Tort, Harry at 58%. Let's see here. Michael Jardine, Wolves 55, Linda C. We have Soylent Green is people. I'm telling you, something is going on with the Walmarts. So, by the way, I have heard, there's several people telling me that, in fact, my friend Dave told me that they actually cordoned off the Eastern Washington Walmart. And if you guys want to go see, they have a ton of trailers out front, and not like the containers, but trailers. And when they asked about it, they said that they were expanding the break room. And it's like one of those office trailers could actually be a trailer that could have a whole office for a huge job site. They have multiple of those. So they have like, 5 or 6 of those offices. Why would they need that to expand the break room? Expanding the break room or making the break room bigger, as a construction job, that sounds like something they told them to tell people that asked. Like, hey, what do we tell people that ask about all this construction? And by the way, the parking is all of the handicap spots. And that's one of the reasons why my friend Dave actually noticed is all of the only handicap spots are trailers. What is up with that? So we're hearing a lot of stuff from Walmarts around the country, including a lot of Walmarts that are actually closing down. It says Walmart is dying. They're getting everything from G. G is going to cut us off of everything. Very well could be. They killed Fry's. Fry's Electronics is now gone. Mikey B, let's see here. Quit it with the lies. They need to break room for all the self-care. I think that's what it said. Hello, let's see here. We've got Levin Pagan. Trial makes you stronger. Jaleesa. Cheyenne. Who farted? The right-sided. That's a good one. And then we've got here Kathleen Bemis and Salda Paul. Nice to see you guys. What do you guys think about this? I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. If I missed you, BP, I am sorry. I wish I want to know your opinion on that. The U.S. Air Force is stocking up on stealth jets in Alaska, and its pilots are learning to thrive in harsh Arctic conditions. Remember, you can call in at 224-400-MARF. Again, there are limited lines, so try to get in early in the show. That's, again, 2244-00-6273, and that number is also scrolling right down below me. It says, with the arrival of the 54th F-35 at Elson Air Base in April, Alaska became home to the world's largest concentration of fifth-generation fighter jets. After a 2-year buildup of the 354th Fighter Wing, there are now 2 squadrons of F-35s at Elson in central Alaska. They join 2 squadrons of F-22s already stationed at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson farther south. Alaska's sprawling training ranges and its ease of access to Europe and Asia make it ideal for exercises. But it says, but working with a constant test for pilots and crews, 2 officers with the 354th Wing said this month. It says, quote, we have a motto that we're ready to go at 50 below. And it does get that cold sometimes. Colonel David Birkeland, the wing commander, said during an Air Force Association event at August 10th. It says, quote, today's beautiful 78-degree day, but if you come back in February, you'll see it's fairly ominous environment to maintain and support and operate airplanes. That's another thing. I don't know how they must make military, equipment to deal with extreme cold and extreme hot, but that's pretty crazy as far as 50 below. Air Force has long had the U.S. military's largest presence in the Arctic. The first F-22 arrived at Elmendorf-Richardson in August of 2007, and it and other service branches have hastened to expand their footprints as the great change of the climate makes the region more accessible. So they're saying the snow is melting. By the way, somebody asked why I couldn't say that. And again, I'll highlight this. It's not so much that this is even a filter. They only want NBC, CNN, BBC, them talking about it. And if anybody does that's not them, they actually put wikis on your thing and they downrank it. So even if the video, it could be 99% about something else. You mention that, and they end up downranking your video because you have that mentioned. They put a Wikipedia under your video, and then they downrank it under thousands. I mean, it could be it could be any news video will be above this one. So that is one reason, but also I reference somebody to a Voltaire quote, I paraphrase now, but look at the things you can't talk about. Those are the things you question. Despite the changes to the weather, the Arctic can still be inhospitable. Just getting to your plane requires bundling up, said Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Worrell, commander of the 356th Fighter Squadron, which is part of the 354th Wing. It says you're going to wear silk weight thermals. You're going to wear fleece thermals, and it says then you're just going to put your flight suit on, and then your G-suit, and then you're going to put snow pants over your G-suit, and then you're going to put a snow jacket on, and then you're going to put your JSF jacket on, which most likely has a Taiwan patch. And then you're going to put on mucklucks, which which are boots rated for temperatures down to negative 50 degrees. So think about the men and women who are suiting up in that kind of temperatures. They're basically wearing like 8 layers, including a G-suit, a flight suit, mucklucks, and of course snow clothes under and above. That's pretty insane. It says at that point, you're so hot, you just want to get out of the building. We'll walk to the jets in negative 30, negative 40, just because it's easier to stay cool than it is to try to ride in the step van. You'll get in the jet, and the goal is to not sweat until you get out there and flying, which is pretty nice. I wonder what the AC is rated on those F-35s. Probably pretty good. Those are some badass planes. If you see, those are some of the most advanced jets. Those are the top, the top of the top right there. Sky House, Mr. Streets, Ross Adams, Lisa R. Hall. Thank you, Claude Farrell. Thank you, everybody over on, of course, over on D-Live. Thank you. Deanna Marie, Michael Corson, Miranda McGuire. Thank you for yet another support there. And Beverly Ratliff. And, of course, Crypto, thank you so much for your support as well. Thank you for subscribing. All right, we have a special caller in just a second. And, Dex, while you get our first caller on, we actually have an update on all of the solar events happening right now. We had multiple events happen over the last 48 hours. So we'll have Wages on here in just a second to talk about that. And before we do, I do want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/prep. The reason why it is important you go check it out now is they actually have the largest discount on the 3-month supply of freeze-dried foods that they have ever had. We've been with them now for a couple years, and we have never seen anything above $150. Now you can get $250 off on a 3-month supply for one person. That means you'll have every single thing you need as far as breakfast, lunch, and dinner for, of course, 90 days for one person. Also, you could, do a month and a half if you have 2 people. Or again, split it, and so on. So if you want to go check that out, it is probably the best time to get those packages. They come in actual sealed 25-year shelf life packages that are then put into buckets, which you can bury, you can put in your basement, you can put in your trunk, you can put at your cabin, or put in the back of your truck. It doesn't matter. But make sure to go check that out right now. There is a $250 off sale with just marfooglenews.com/prep. You also can get things like the Alexa Pure Pro. Make sure to go check that out. That's a gravity-fed water filtration system. We've been talking about water a lot lately, of course. Last week, they announced that worldwide, water is not safe to drink, or rainwater isn't. So, again, there are solutions for almost everything. Make sure to go check it out at marfooglenews.com/prep. When you go there, you will most likely get a discount, and you will most definitely help our channel grow. So, thank you so much. All right, let's get Wages World on. And it looks like... Let's see here. Let me make sure to go in here. And
Adam, Wages is live.
All right. And then do we have... I see... Does he have any pictures that he sent, or...
Yeah, they're in the screener. There's a link.
Okay, Cannibal CMEs incoming. What's going on, Wages? How are you doing?
Sorry about that, my stupid phone. Anyway, yeah, doing okay. How are you guys?
I'm good. So let me pull this up on the screen. We have some images of the events that have just transpired in space. So wages, do you want to explain what happened over the last couple days?
Sure will. There's been a lot going on, and obviously what you're looking at there is just it's an X-ray graph, and we look at that for solar flares, and you can see there on the left how they rate them: A, B, C, and M. Most people have heard about an X-class flare, but we've had a bunch of M-class flares the past few days. We've had a sunspot just kind of like develop out of nowhere, and it like got really, really unstable, and it was right in front of us. So it started firing back on the 13th, and it hasn't stopped. So it's quite the event going on right now. The biggest flare that we've had is an M5. You can see that there on the graph. But if you want to go ahead and go to the next capture there, the number 2 one there in the Dropbox, what you're going to be looking at there is it's a picture of Lasco C2, and those are 4 of the eruptions that came off. That is from our perspective, and all 4 of those are going to hit us, plus more. And these aren't like gigantic, but they're also not like small. But what happened was the first one that fired off, and I know number 1's missing, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But the first one that fired off, there was a second one behind it, and it's going to catch up to it. So they call that a cannibal CME. And if you wanted to, I guess, go down to the 4th one, I guess I should have put that in a different order. Sorry about that.
That's okay. But these are all, by the way, these are all bigger than Earth. I mean, this is a tiny dot on this is the size of Earth. These are all massive shots out of the sun.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're looking at some of those once they fire off there, they are basically taking up half of space from our perspective. They are, as far as wide and long, they're really, really large when it comes to the actual size of them. Now, that doesn't always mean that it's strong, but oftentimes it does. With a larger flare, you have a bigger chance of a bigger eruption. And a flare and a CME are 2 different things. So what you were looking at on the 1-2 on the black and white imaging, those were that's actual CME. That's actual plasma leaving the sun. So that was coming right at us. But if you want to go ahead and go on down to that 4th one, it's actually a little movie. It's just a couple seconds long there. It shows that's the NOAA forecasting model, and it shows the cannibal CME. It shows it in motion, and that's the only reason why I wanted to show it, because you can see the second one catching up to the one in the front. And but yeah.
When that
happens, and what's interesting,
just to explain, basically it shoots it out, and it's going at a certain speed. The back one shoots out another one, and it ends up, it's kind of like a race, and the back one is a faster runner, catches up and gobbles up the first one. And then can they combine? Is that how it works? Can can that make it a worse storm?
Well, that's a great point you just made, because if you look at that last image right there that you have on the screen now, they're actually combining right as they hit Earth. So it might look green on this particular capture, but that middle orb there that's Earth. So as you watch that, you can see it, and they're going to combine. Is what's going to happen. And when that happens, you can get what's called a snowplow effect. Basically, there's particles out in front, and they, just like a snowplow, they build up and then they hit. It can be slow, it can be fast. There's so many things that can happen with these things. But they were just forecasting this to be like a G1, possibly a G2 storm, but they've changed their mind. They're talking at least a G3 now, possibly bigger. And what that means is, you're going to start seeing aurora down into, possibly Illinois and Oregon, down pretty far south. And, as far as electrical and stuff like that, this can cause issues with satellites. It increases drag, so they have to, obviously make adjustments to keep them in orbit.
Well,
because of what's happened. Go ahead.
I would like to point out that over the last few years that I've been covering this stuff, it seems to me, and this is just my personal opinion, it seemed to me like we are seeing so much more coverage over auroras, right? Over the last few years, hasn't anybody else felt strange that it's like every year and even multiple times a year now, it seems like they're saying, oh, now there's going to be auroras as far down as California or, as far down as Washington. I know because I'm in that spot where it's unusual to get them, but every time they cover it, it's like, oh, you're going to be able to see it all the way down here. Normally, they are farther up north, right? Is that correct? Or is it just wherever they hit?
Yeah, no, you're correct. Typically, they hang above, at least they hang above the Canadian border there. If you live here, here in America. But I do agree with you in the fact that it's probably a desensitization technique that they're using over a long period of time, just to kind of desensitize us to, when somebody says mid-latitude aurora. And I know that probably don't mean a whole lot to the viewers here, but for somebody like me that watches this and knows the terminology and stuff, that you almost become numb to that term after a while. What really should be being paid attention to sometimes gets muddled, in the fact that we've just been hearing it so much. And I do think that that's part of it.
Well,
now,
same with
we
UFOs,
are getting into,
same with everything.
We were in solar minimum, but moving into solar maximum, there's going to be more activity, but I do agree with what you said. It definitely is something that's going on, I think. But yeah. As far as, you can get aurora anywhere that there's a crack in our magnetic field. And, that plays into the whole magnetic pole flipping thing that we talk about all the time. And, all that stuff that we always talk about, aurora can just show up wherever it wants when we get hit from this kind of stuff. That's why we talk about it.
Now I have a question.
And for me, go ahead.
A quick question. So, and to somebody who doesn't follow this stuff, we're not even close to the peak. Governments worldwide have warned and even put out notices that this solar cycle may have unpredictable and extremely strong solar storms and CMEs that are possible. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't bring the article with me today, but I'll be doing some work on it here in the near future. There was an article written in one of the bigger journals. They did some studies on it, and basically what they were studying was what's the chances of us getting an X100 class flare or bigger, and what time frame. Well, it fell into, and again, I'm not trying to play this up at all. You can go read the article for yourself. It's in the journal, but anyway, within the next 30 years, there's a 70% chance of us getting one of those. And then they went on further, and within the next next century, there's about a 99% chance that we'll have one of those. So it's legitimately, that's mainstream talking that stuff.
So
that ain't us.
If you have a kid,
ain't Joe Blow YouTuber like myself.
If you have a child right now, they may experience a complete, one of the worst events that mankind has ever seen. And then when they say 70%, right, they say that on stuff that they don't know about as well, like Cascade subduction zone. They said a number. It was about 5-6 years ago when they had it at. It was going to be it was like a 10% or a 2% chance in the next 50 years, and then it went up, and then it went up again. Now it's a 30% chance in the next 30. They've changed these numbers for major events, and by the way, I'm just misquoting the actual thing. I'll have to look that up. But I do know it's changed 3 times. So they get new information, and then they update the numbers, and then they basically say, oh, this is actually more probable. They're never going to tell us, hey, in the next 10 years, we have found out that there is guaranteed going to be a horrible disaster. They would never tell us. We would absolutely go ape business, and we would go nuts, and we would start rioting. If people knew that there was a disaster coming to this earth, people would go absolutely insane. So I think that those numbers could be worse or they could be better. Who knows? Maybe they're using it to make us scared.
Yeah, that's a great point, Adam. It really is, because, that's what I try to do too. I try to stay, you got to try to stay a little bit level and understand that it could be worse or it could be better. And oftentimes people forget to say, hey, it could be better. You know what I mean? But it could be worse too. And that's what that's my whole point here. The fact that within the next century, they're essentially saying that we're going to see an X100 flare. And what that means for people that don't really kind of understand what an X100 flare is, in 1859, there was the Carrington event. That was an X39, and it fried telegraph lines in people's hands. Things were catching on fire. X100 flare is grid down for sure. I mean, there's no question asked. And yeah, and I know that that's a low res movie there. Sorry, I had to send it through my phone. But that sunspot there on the south, that is the sunspot that was firing everything. It still is. It hasn't stopped. But it's like firing from the hip, man. I mean, it just keeps going. It hasn't stopped. It's kind of crazy. I haven't seen one like that in quite some time.
It just
been
keeps
a long
going.
time since I've seen one do this.
Yeah, it's boom, 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 boom. You said for 13 days. Is that right?
What's that?
Did you say it's happening for 13 days now? Is that what you said?
It's been happening since the 13th.
Oh, okay. So for 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad I corrected that.
Because the sunspot wasn't even there. This one didn't rotate in. It developed right there. That's what was kind of crazy. I mean, within like 6 hours of its development, it started firing flares at us. And again, the reason why is because you got positive and negative together, and they start, just because a sunspot's big doesn't mean it's going to fire something big at you. It has to be very, very complex and very, very unstable to do those kinds of things. And something else, I'll say one more thing about this sunspot, that this thing does hold the energy to fire an X-class flare. They are saying that, and that's why I think some of their forecasting is going up. They don't know if it's going to. I mean, if it does, then obviously I'll report on it, but it does have that kind of energy. It's got that complexity. It can do it at any time. So if that happens, it's just going to compound things. Well, BP Earthwatch was in your, I'm not sure if he's still here or not, but, from watching him, I learned what compression and rapid expansion was in our magnetic field. And that is a big reason why when these things hit, that's what happens. It hits, it compresses our magnetic field, and then we rapidly expand back out, trying to get back to a stable position. And if there's a CME in the way, like right behind it, it's not letting us expand back out. It's just getting hit, and it becomes very, very unstable. So yeah. Well, I was glad to see BP in the chat, because I learned that from him.
Well, he's a legend. He's been around for a long time. By the way, just to use that as an opportunity, make sure to go check out BP Earthwatch. He had a gigantic channel. He was somebody that all of us watched. He was taken out right before we dropped those little things in the box, and he had to start from a complete scratch. And he has built his channel up again over 100,000. It's pretty unbelievable what he has been able to do. But it's because he's legendary, he's consistent, and he definitely puts out a lot of content. So make sure to go over and check out BP Earthwatch. Again, once you hear his voice, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But yes, so well, thank you for this update.
He can. Well, yeah. One more thing, he can also make a guitar sing for sure.
Oh yeah, no, he's a wonderful
musician.
musician.
I'd say that.
Well, thank you for the update, Wages, and we will follow this. And if there's any new news, I know that's redundant, but we will bring you back on and have you update if there's anything crazier from this. And of course, we're just on standby, waiting for kind of something bigger to happen. And it's pretty scary, the fact that we've gone our entire lives, and no one's really talked about this unless you were in the field. But the last couple of years, it has really, really gotten to the top of the list as far as things that could happen to us, because they are now finding out more and more and more. And it just happens to be that we are in this kind of 400-year cycle of cycles, and we're coming back around to what, those two scientists that have really been pulling a lot of people into their theories, because they, a lot of people believe that those guys are right, is that we are going to see a cycle of many cycles that's going to be really bad, and it's going to peak in 2024, 2025. So this is, again, going to be kind of a wild time, and that may be why a lot of the things on Earth, or the governments of the Earth, are doing things differently. I don't know. It's always a question in the back of my head.
I was actually going to say that. Yeah, I think Space Force and all that stuff it's all tied together. I really do.
Well, we just covered that Space Force just took over all of the satellites. I wonder why moves like this. There's got to be a solid reason. They had a meeting and they were like, we're going to transfer stuff out or over here. Why did that need to be done? Are they consolidating for financial reasons, or are they trying to get more money for Space Force? Is this a political reason? Why did they do that? Why they have had the same system for so long, and it's been separated. Now they're basically putting everything under one roof, which is probably a pretty big roof now, but who knows? Well, thank you, Wages. Yeah. I appreciate the update, and we will be waiting for more. So thank you.
All right, man. Well, I love the Foogle fam. Love what you guys have done. Stay good.
All right, and that was Wages World. We will make sure to pop his channel over on marfooglenews.com. Also, just search Wages, WAGES, World, WORLD, on YouTube, and he pops up right away. Again, he was formerly Blue Kool-Aid, so make sure to go check him out. He is a great creator. If you are subscribed, I would double check to make sure that you are subscribed, because, of course, a lot of folks get unsubscribed for whatever reason. House cleaning is what the platform calls it. All right. Thank you. There's a few more people that I missed here. I really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Kenny Crowder, Joseph Newhouse, Derek McGlovin, Maria Madrigal, thank you so much. Be Real Beast, 20, Prosperity 12, I did get you. Zippy Moon says, I haven't forgot about my Marfia. I'm just mentally drained. Going to take 2 more weeks off to reconnect. I miss you all. Rest in peace to the Marfia family member. I didn't catch his name. The name was, Chronoholic M. But we're still waiting, and if his wife wants to share that, I'm sure that that would be a really great thing to do. Linda C., thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hope his wife starts watching. I know that a lot of family members, a lot of people have brought family members in. That's how we grow. We only grow through you guys. We don't get recommended. If we're covering something in the news, it's not like we're going to pop up above, CNN and Fox. We're covering things. That's another thing. People ask, like, why are your titles the way they are? We have to grab people just by their one chance of seeing our thumb or our title. I try to always make sure that the thumb and the title have great significance to the show, but also we have to grab people that way because we are fighting an uphill battle trying to get people in the door. Once we have them in the door, then most people stick around, and as you guys have seen, we have slowly grown. I mean, we've grinded this entire time. We always had a really good live turnout, but it was a grind. It's always has been. So thank you guys for sharing this out. If you can, go home, share it with a family member, share it on Facebook or whatever platform you're still on, and get us out there. Laura Shepard, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that. Thank you, and thank you. And then Linda C., again, thank you for the massive support of the show. I appreciate that. All right. Back into the news, the Air Force wants to start using its Angry Kitten system in combat. Yeah, no, you heard that right. The Angry Kitten system. It says south of the Death Valley this spring, the Air Force experimented with some electronic warfare in tests that took place in April at Jaina Lake, California, fighter jets flew 30 training missions testing the efficacy of an electronic warfare training device called Angry Kitten. In an August 3 announcement, the Air Force recommended using Angry Kitten for actual combat. Given the success of the pod in training and demonstrated ability to be reprogrammed, Air Combat Command recommended 4 pods to be converted into combat pods and provide attack capabilities against enemy radio frequency threat systems instead of simulating them. It says electronic warfare is a crucial part of modern armed conflict, and it involves, of course, broadly the transmission and obstruction of signals along with electromagnetic spectrums. It says primarily, but not exclusively, in the domain of radio waves. These signals are used for communications between pilots with radar to perceive the location of enemies beyond visual sight, and for weapons guidance. If one side can block the signals of the other side, it can potentially prevent their pilots from communicating, their radar from perceiving, and their weapons from following radar guidance. The Angry Kitten was developed by Georgia Tech Research Institute to simulate the electronic warfare devices of another country's aircraft, the kind that the Air Force might encounter in the sky. It says it is a system that incorporates software-defined radio, meaning a system that incorporates the signal and frequencies can be changed by code. It says this is in contrast to traditional hardware-defined radio, which is limited by what frequencies the physical components can produce and receive. It says the project, known as Angry Kitten, is utilizing commercial electronics, custom hardware development, novel machine learning software, and a unique test bed to evaluate unprecedented levels of adaptability. So essentially, this thing is made in adaptability in electronic warfare. They are preparing for a conflict where the enemy is going to knock out their stuff. They want this because they want to actually deal with their stuff getting knocked out. It says an adaptable training tool allows the Air Force to train against a range of simulated foes. This work is done by the aggressor squadrons, specialized pilots who train against USAF aircraft to try to prepare those pilots for forces they might encounter in a real war. Because the U.S. does not have the highly sensitive top-end fighters built by countries like Xi's J-20 and Vlad's Checkmate, it will instead use other aircraft to simulate them. And that means employing a tool to simulate how those jets will conduct electronic warfare. It says Angry Kitten offers the ability to collect realistic, representative jammer data on advanced waveforms. It can be used to represent virtually any known threat and even hypothetical radar systems that don't currently exist. If you can see where this is heading, they are practicing for a real conflict. And the enemy is going to be Xi and Vlad. I don't think that Vlad and UKR is where this ends. We're in just the beginning. We're in the very start of a world conflict and a world collapse. And I'm not trying to scare people and make you depressed, but unfortunately, the writing has been on a wall for a very long time. In fact, it's probably been on slabs that got destroyed. Something is happening right now, and everyone knows it. And before WW2 and WW1, everyone knew it. When WW2 happened, everyone knew that we were going to go to conflict with Japan. It was something that everybody was used to the idea of, and that is where we are at right now. We're at that stage. Xi is in the stage of practicing to destroy not only the defenses on Taiwan, but they're practicing for a takeover or at least some sort of basic invasion of the USA. And the reason I say this is because they're actually practicing on areas that look like the Bay, that look like the Puget Sound. They're practicing their pilots. That's the same thing Japan did before they attacked Pearl Harbor. Xi has been preparing for years and years, basically retrofitting and creating from scratch even their commercial ferries. They passed a law to make all of those commercial ferries be able to basically transit the Pacific Ocean. So it's really insane to think about the level of production going on right now. And as we've known, this is not something that happens overnight. It's something that has to be worked out. We saw all of the little moves as far as the USA. They have been making missiles. Raytheon, of course, we covered a couple of years ago. Raytheon had so many missiles, they were lined up in the parking lot. They were making them on average every minute and 30 seconds. So, and that was straight from a Raytheon employee in the Fugel fan. So, obviously, they are practicing without GPS, practicing to go up against something that is going to knock out their electricity and everything else. So this is definitely not getting better. This is why we ask you guys to keep your eyes peeled, and it's never too late. As Alaska Prepper says, you should have extra food and water. You should have extra everything you can, and you can do it in baby steps. We're hoping nothing happens tomorrow. And if it happens in another year and a half, then you have more than plenty of time. If it happens in 10 years, even better. If it never happens, that would be a blessing. But most of you know, and you have that gut feeling that it's not going to get much better before it gets much worse. Kissinger says U.S. is heading aimlessly towards the brink of conflict with Vlad and Xi. Exactly. Now, by the way, Kissinger, of course, is, people will debate whether to listen to him or not, but he does try to be quoted. The guy's been quoted more than anybody I've seen in this current, that's still alive anyways. I see Kissinger quotes everywhere. It says, we are at the edge of conflict with Russia and China and issues which we partly created without any concept of how this is going to end or what it's supposed to lead to. What's funny is people that hate him will say, oh, that's BS, but then they actually agree with that statement. It's weird when the people that you don't like, you actually agree with. That's the view of Henry Kissinger, the 99-year-old former Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he recommended that the U.S. not accelerate the tensions and to create options. And for that, you have to have some purpose. Kissinger added that the foreign policy is very responsive to the emotion of the moment. Now, Dex, I'm going to pop you in here. Also, though, hasn't he also been quoted saying that, isn't he the one that said, or was that SOROS that said that nobody should be investing in Xi's country and that's a wartime thing? I think that he also said that, go ahead.
If I remember correctly, he's the one that was very prominent about starting the relations with them and getting them into their growth phase back in the early days. So always had this position of trying to ward off any sort of conflict with them and telling people that we shouldn't be doing this. He's been very stern about it. Now he is 99 years old, but he does, obviously carry some weight with his position and what he's done in the past. But and I know a lot of people may not like him for various reasons or not, and that's not necessarily an endorsement here on our part. It's just we're reporting what he's saying. So.
Yeah, so again, Kissinger is quoted all over the place. Doesn't mean that I believe him. It says, he did say that even if the U.S. played some role in triggering Vlad, UKR now has to be treated like a NATO member, whether formally or not. I don't even what I don't understand is obviously they're still not in NATO. But how long does it normally take to get into NATO? Like, what is involved? Why does it take so long? Like, they say that they were going to fast track Sweden and Poland, and it's like, why? What do they have to do? Is this just like bureaucracy, like paperwork they have to do or something? Or if it's about them changing their laws to fit into the matrix of it? I don't get that. I guess I'm not the smartest as far as world politics goes, but I can see when something seems off. And then even a limited nuclear war could kill a third of the world's population, study shows. Now, there's two reasons for something like this to come out. There's the first reason, which could just be to scare the population. It could be part of a bigger kind of operation to make us all fear this and to make us fall in line. If we are afraid, then we are easier to control. Or there is a desensitization of this subject. And a lot of us have gone through this, especially the older folks that, hid under their desks when they were small, when you were in school and they did nuke drills. That's actually far from what we've been doing for years. They even were very against PSAs of a nuclear kind. All of these things that we have stayed away from for decades since the end of the cold conflict, or the supposed cooling down or the hot heating up of it, that we're doing all of those things. We're doing nuke PSAs. We're telling people to have go bags. And by we, I'm saying the U.S. government is telling everybody to do these things. Here in the U.S. and in other countries. Sweden is telling their people to prepare. Poland is telling their people to prepare. We have Canada is telling people to prepare. Mexico is even telling people to prepare. They think something bigger is going to go off. It says, as escalating tensions among the United States, Vlad, and Xi revive old fears of nuclear conflict, some researchers are warning that even a limited-scale exchange between such nations as India and Pakistan could have catastrophic consequences for global food supplies and trigger mass death worldwide. We are already we are still eating 2021 food. The stuff that was grown in 2021, that is what we were eating this year, most of which was grown last year. This year, they had horrible outturn. I can't even imagine without a nuclear exchange how next year is going to be, let alone if we had some sort of catastrophe. It says a nuclear conflict involving less than 3% of the world's stockpile could take out a third of the world's population. Now, by the way, 3% of the world's stockpile, that's still a whole lot because there's thousands and thousands of nukes, and it doesn't take that many to actually destroy some stuff. So even 3% of the world's stockpile sounds small, but that's actually a whole lot. It says, according to a new international study led by scientists at Rutgers University, a larger nuclear conflict between Vlad and the U.S. could take as much as 3/4 of the world's population in the same time frame. So basically 75% of people on Earth would be gone. According to the research published on Monday in Nature Food, it says it's really a cautionary tale that the use of any nuclear weapons could be catastrophe for the world, said, of course, a weather scientist and study author Alan Robach, a distinguished professor in Rutgers Department of Environmental Sciences. The findings come at a time when 30 years after the end of the cold conflict, the threat of a nuclear holocaust could be greater than it was ever. Recently, UK National Security Advisor Stephen Lovegrove argued that the breakdown in dialogue between nations, as well as the loss of safeguards that had been created between the nuclear superpowers decades ago, has plunged the world into a dangerous new age. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also warned that the prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility. So is this all to scare us and to get us all heebie-jeebied up and to make us easier to control, or are we actually at the brink of a nuclear catastrophe? Let me know in the comments down below. Question everything. Don't be afraid. Be prepared. We're going to go to our next call here in just a second at 22440-MARF. Thank you, Beeble Dog. I appreciate that. Thank you again, Linda C., and thank you, 5,000 folks in the live chat. So thank you so much for popping in, everybody. We're going to go over to our next caller, which it looks like we have Alan, a.k.a. Overcoming BIP, bipolar. By the way, lines are very limited, so make sure to call in right now at 22440-6273, and that number is always scrolling down below. Let's get Alan on the phone, and while you have Alan coming in, he's got to go through the process here. Make sure to press option 4 when you get through to 22440-MARF. I do want to remind everybody this whole show is powered by energy. This is our solution if something goes down for power. If you do not know about solar generators, they are a version of a generator that does not require gas. This one in particular is one of the most coveted. In fact, it has a waiting list just to get. This does not make sound, which means it will not be heard from 3 or 4 blocks away. Again, if SHTF happens, that's the last thing you want. Also, this is modular. Just like Legos in a way, you can actually stack these in stacks of 5. They can be expanded up to 96 batteries. Each battery has 1,000 watt hours, so it's extremely easy to decide how many watt hours you actually need, how many batteries you need to sustain whatever size house you have. Again, this is a great system, and also it is a great system because 1 or 2 batteries or even up to 5 batteries can be stacked, and you can take them with you. You can take these to your cabin, you can take these to your bug out spot, and as well you can charge them with solar panels. Again, this is all solar. You can actually charge it from the wall, from your car, or the panels. And again, you can use panels from Amazon, or I highly recommend going and getting their foldable panels from them. There's actually packages that they put together. I highly recommend getting the mod, so you can plug in 3 times the amount of solar panels. Instead of 4, you can get 12 per battery. And then also, I definitely recommend the supercharger. They have packages, all sorts of packages that are up to $170 off when you order through us. And this is definitely a very professional system. It is not cheap because of what it is. This is an actual solution for power. This system is also not going to cost you money in the long run. There's way less maintenance than a gas-powered generator, and there is no $10 a gallon gas. And I know gas has gone back down to $5 a gallon, but still, you don't have to pay that with this. You just need sun. That's marfooglenews.com/energy with an I. That's marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. Make sure to use the code Marfoogle for upwards of $170 off depending on the package. Thank you guys. That helps support us. That helps us grow. And of course, it's going to help protect you. If you've ever been through a blackout or a storm or an earthquake, again, it doesn't have to be for SHTF, then you know, without power, we are really, really bad off. We are completely dependent on it. All right, and then let's get our next caller on. It looks like we have Alan, a.k.a. Overcoming Bipolar. Let's see, wants to talk about Stan. All right, Alan.
Hello,
You are live on Marfoogle
Hello,
News.
Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's going on?
Yeah, I just want to tell you guys thank you so much for all the hard work you guys are putting into these shows and everything. And I just feel so privileged to even hear you guys every night. I followed your show since about 2018 when there was a splashdown event in Hawaii and a lot of people were doubting it, but you were right on about what was going on. And I just want to thank you for everything with Stan Deo. And I get to go on his show once a month and have a Zoom, and I kind of lead off with prayer and we just talk about solar flares and all the events that you talk about on your show. And I just want to thank you so much for what you're doing.
Now, if people don't know, Stan Deo is one of the founders of EMP Shield, and of course, definitely, this is the reason why, again, we work with companies like EMP Shield. So you actually go on his show once a month, and you appear. What do you guys normally talk about?
We talk about solar events, and we talk about certain countries, like the C word, and where there's a conflict in Ukraine right now. And I'm so privileged to be part of it. And now I'm in a ministry partner with Pastor Paul Bagley, and I'm able to contribute to some of his live streams and everything. I just want to thank all you guys, because you guys are all such a tight knit community. You and Jacob Israel, and I got to meet him and read his book. It's such a great book, and I just want to thank you for even subscribing to my channel. I started my channel because of you, because you inspired me to share with my family and friends. And my YouTube channel is called Overcoming Bipolar with Jesus, and I bring the gospel in there because I'm a minister. I've been a minister for 6 years, but I also like to give people current events and keep people on the tip of the spear,
Well, no, I most definitely do. Now, are you going to go to the Israel trip with Paul Bagley's group? I just heard about that. I thought that was pretty cool.
I would love to go to something like that. I have like Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I've flown there, but I don't have the money right now, because what happened was a year ago I got the bug or whatever, and I had to go to the hospital, so I barely survived. I was on an oxygen machine, and I survived and God gave me life again. But God is good. It says it's not by might nor will power, but by His Spirit. He can give us life. And even though I was in the entrepreneur medical group, I survived that thing. And I'm trying to fight the good fight and post on YouTube and watch you guys every week. I try to watch every week you and Pastor Paul and Deep Earth Watch. I heard you mention. I'm so thankful for all you guys, and Jacob Israel especially too. He's really a good guy.
Well, so I do actually, I believe we talked before, correct? We have talked before previously. Yes. I remember your channel, and
you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you because I feel like you're such a humble person, and you'll reach out to anybody. And a lot of people online, like they I go to a church down here in Louisiana. It's called Jimmy Swaggart Ministries, and my sister sings in the choir. But I've been preaching the gospel online for 6 years and preaching in churches. But I'm so thankful for you guys to share all these things. And like you were saying, even what Jacob Israel was saying about the events that are going on in New York City, it's so weird because my favorite basketball team is the Brooklyn Nets, and they were actually telling storylines sometimes in sports, and that's what I posted on my channel about like the Super Bowl and the basketball games. I feel like the earth is kind of like a script, and they're going based on that, and they're telling these little storylines about things that are going to happen in the future. And maybe only the people that are aware, like the Bible even says, that to be awake for our salvation is nearer than we first believed. So I think people that are awakening to these ideas that these governments are just telling us a lot of things to get us swayed. But if we really look, we can see that they're trying to tell a message, and it's all going according to the Bible, because the Bible's the greatest story. It says it's history because it's His story, and these people, these world leaders, and these basketball teams and everything, they're actually all playing a part in showing the story of God.
I love that. History is His story. I love it. And this is Overcoming Bipolar with Jesus. I've mentioned I wanted to, maybe it was just because I personally reached out, but I watched a bunch of your shorter videos, and you actually have shorts, which are really cool too. I think that's great. But also, I hope that you just keep going with this, and thank you so much for continuing to put out content and to put out content of its kind. Again, thank you for being a great Christian guy, and I appreciate it. I remember seeing your video about some of the stuff that happened with the schools. Gosh, and you do a really great job.
What was the video?
It was talking about one of the events that happened at the schools. It was one of the really horrible events. I believe you talked about it on one of your videos.
Wow. Mm. Yeah. I try to like space it out. I try to talk about every type of different subject, but I also have sermons of me preaching and things like that. But I also try to keep everyone I do YouTube shorts so that I could get the current events to people too, because I know that people don't have that much time sometimes. So, and I want to start chatting on your live streams too. I've just been so busy with ministry, and I do tune in every week and watch your shows because there's so much on the tip of the spear as far as current events, and you even have the spiritual side, and you're about lifting people up, and I believe in all of that, and I'm excited to see where the Lord's opening the door with Pastor Paul Begley too, and I see that you're always checking up on his channel, and you're always trying to go to people's channel too and support them, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I just popped in the other day, and his wife Heidi, and a beautiful story, and I want to say Michelle or Tara. I communicated with
Tara.
them.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing a class with her in September 20th. I rolled into a biblical prophecy school because I've been called to be a minister since I was 30, but I want to be ordained, and they're going to help me with that process. And I'm just looking forward to the fall class because they're going to talk about the Old Testament in Hebrew, and she's like a scholar because like she's been in a lot of university and like biblical studies, and I'm all for education. My sister was educated in the University of Redlands in Southern California. She played flute and everything, but sometimes the schools are teaching, the C word or social doctrines, and I rather learn real knowledge. That's why I tune into you guys and Pastor Paul and Stan and everyone, because you guys are teaching the real information. A lot of people are just teaching indoctrination.
I also remember so on top of overcoming bipolar, we talked about how that with Jesus, you can overcome all sorts of other things. And I remember our conversation last time. That was I remember that now. Well, thank you, and it was great
Yeah,
to get
so
an
what-
update. It was great to get
Yeah,
an
I'll
update.
tell you one more thing about the name. Reason why I called it Overcoming Bipolar with Jesus is because when I was having that mania problem that people that have bipolar, 2 years later I got completely healed when I was filled with the Spirit of God, and I don't have that anymore. For 14 years I've had a stable mind because God says He has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And just a year now, I've been completely off medication. So it took a long more process to get off the medication, but God is able to do it, and there's nothing impossible with God.
All right. Well, I love you. I love your enthusiasm. God bless you, man. And I appreciate you calling in.
God bless you.
And you're now up to 74, so another 45 people jumped over there. And then I hope more people do.
Wow, thank you, guys.
I hope a genuine love mob goes over there for everybody that wants to hear your content. Thank you so much. And
God bless you guys.
God bless you too.
God bless you.
All right. Well, I will talk to
And
you.
I'll
I'm
see
sure.
you soon. I'll be keeping in communication with you guys. Believe me, I'm going to be more active in the community.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And you have a wonderful day, and God bless you. That was Overcoming Bipolar with Jesus. Again, if you want to go over, subscribe. If you want to hear his word, then make sure to go over and go to marfooglenews.com. You'll find a link for his channel. Anybody that calls in, if they do have a channel, we link that under the overflow and caller section on each show. So whenever we do call-ins, you can always find a caller. If you, and this applies to any previous show, everything is archived on the website. So when you go there, you'll see everything is there. At the very bottom, you'll see callers only right now because I haven't updated this, but it will actually be there by the end of the show. So that's another thing. People have been able to search they remembered like, oh, this guy called into Marfoogle News like 3 years ago, and they'll be able to go and search whatever part they remember. And that search bar on that top right, utilize it because it's extremely powerful. You can actually find a lot of cool stuff like that. I mean, heck, if you type in Bigfoot, you will find all of the shows that we talked about Bigfoot stories. I'm not kidding you. This is a great thing, so please utilize it. It takes a lot of work to do it, so please get over there and utilize it. So check this out. So you type in Bigfoot, right? It shows you all of these shows. Well, it's showing you for a reason. Once you click on that top one above us, something is not right. You'll see in the links, there will be articles related to Bigfoot. See, look at this. Bigfoot tracks found in snow after something very unhuman attacked house. Is that not cool or what? So there's not many other channels that do that. We want to stand out. So thank you. And thank you for everybody that just subscribed. I appreciate that. All right. And then going back to the news, let's see here if we can. What is the... Oh my gosh. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the Google icon is two people hugging for the G. There's always some sort of crazy symbolism in the Google sign. Zelensky warns catastrophe at nuclear plant could threaten whole of Europe. Now, Dex, I know that you have already lined up our next caller. Do you want to pop in on this real quick?
Hey, Adam. Yes. So here we go again with this plant that's been talked about, and there's this nuclear plant has a lot of military action going on from both sides. We heard, and we reported on last week how the UN came out and made a big statement saying that they're demanding or stating that they need to pull the military away from this. They don't need to be using this area because this is such a big deal. I mean, it's one of the largest nuclear plants in all of Europe. And if there is a catastrophe here, or if something, gets bigger, or, things happen, which, tend to do in hot zones like that, it could really turn into being something that will affect much more than just the locals, or even much more than just UKR there. So, he's the latest, I guess, of the figureheads to come out and say something. I think he's probably said something before, but this is what the coverage is today. He is basically saying that they need to stop the shelling and the other things that are happening in the nearby cities around this location, because it is getting a little too close for comfort, so to speak.
So, by the way, this is also, I thought about the fact that it's putting it in everybody's minds and it's mainstream that, oh, something could happen there. Well, if something just hypothetically did happen there, would that be a trigger event for something bigger? Say it goes off, it causes a horrible event, then every country is aligned and they say, we have to stop this horrible enemy. And right now we're signing into, documentation, we're declaration of conflict, right? That's what I think of when I see this. And I don't believe a lot of what is coming out of really all of Europe and much of what's coming out of the USA right now. But it says that he called on the international community to adopt new tough sanctions against Vlad. I mean, can we just stop with the sanctions? I feel like if we had a different person, or I feel like if we had an actual structure or a person in charge, that they would use the most badass military in the world to just kind of shut all this up. I don't think a lot of it would have even happened, to be honest, but that's just my opinion. What's yours? Let me know. I'm sure many of you disagree. And then G military ship docks at Sri Lanka port despite Indian concern. These are the little things that get to me. I've been telling you guys for years. I think that India is actually working with G. I know that sounds crazy because they've been enemies for a long time, but I've told you. I know that many old-time Mafia members know. I've said it a million times. Like, they had this, the Himalayan border is always pushed back and forth. They've been arguing over it for decades, if not centuries, however long they've been fighting over who owns the Himalayas. And they are constantly battling on that. Well, they had troops on either side, and that's been that way for 4 decades. They recently had this big kind of blowout where people were throwing each other off a cliff, and 20 Indian soldiers perished by hand-to-hand combat and being thrown off cliffs. We don't know how many G soldiers died because they didn't announce it, but it was a bloody battle, they said, right? Well, then after that, within a few months, there was some financial ties. There were some financial deals. They're of course part of a 5-country deal: India, G, Vlad, and I want to say even NK or Iran. And then all of a sudden, G pulled all their troops back off of the border. From satellite images, they said, boom, all of their mobile hospitals, all their forward operating bases, just gone. On the Indian side, all of their operating bases gone. And then they're doing a drill with Vlad, and Vlad is doing a drill with Xi at the same time. Basically, they're trying to be like, you're hanging out with 2 friends, and one of the friend doesn't like the other friend or something. I feel like there's something going on. At the same time, their news, especially their like over-the-top like fear porn news, and I mean it. Like, you think I'm bad? Look at Indian news, the one that flashes a new headline every 2 seconds. That one's like, we're all going to die. That one, they are saying, Xi is going to start a war with India and all of this and this and that. At the same time, they're doing lots of deals with them. India is also no limits partners with Vlad, or at least it seems. When they did the sanctions and they cut off, selling oil to all of these European nations, guess who bought 6 times the same amount of oil than they did last year? India. In fact, India is a huge reason why Vlad is not hurting financially, because they have made up for oil sales that didn't go to the rest of the world. They're helping Vlad, and Vlad is no limits partner with G. It just, something about it seems off. So they're saying they're concerned. It says a G military survey ship docked at Sri Lanka's Chinese-built port of Hambantota on Tuesday after a delay of several days because opposition to the visit from India, which vies with G for influence in crisis-hit Sri Lanka. It says India has opposed the docking of the Wan Wang 5, which analysts describe as a high-tech ship for tracking objects in space, as it fears Xi could use the port near the main Asia-Europe shipping route as a military base. It says Sri Lanka, which needs the support of both India and China as it struggles with its worst economic crisis in decades, initially granted the ship permission for a 5-day replenishment stay in Hambantota. It says it later asked Xi to delay the vessel's arrival, citing the need for more consultations. Yan Wang 5 will now berth for only 3 days to stock up on fuel, food, and other essentials, said an official to the port who declined to be identified as he is not authorized to speak to the media. It says a Sri Lankan government minister said that the island nation was working to ensure there was no friction between friendly countries. India has raised concerns, and Sri Lanka requested a delay in the ship's docking until discussions could be had to resolve these issues. That was, of course, Media Minister Bandula Gwandidardhan. I think I pronounced that right. Even before this, there have been ships from the U.S., India, and other countries coming to Sri Lanka. We have allowed these ships to come in the same way we have allowed Chinese ship to dock. So, actually pertinent to this, it says United Merchants Port Holdings signed a 99-year lease in 2017 to operate the deep sea Hambantota port. Is it crazy that Xi owns or operates, leases, and operates all of these ports around the world? No big powers, saw this as maybe a threat to the power, structure of things. Oh, wait, that's right, because they were in on it. They were getting paid to be able to send contracts for things to be built in Xi's country because they had cheap labor. I mean, virtually almost free labor, right? People were working for peanuts to make Nikes. How did that go? Chris Finner.
Don't forget, I think it was stealth mode in chat, so don't forget the Panama Canal, too.
Yes. And what is it? San Francisco or L.A.? All the ports have their own. And then Australia. Australia did a 99-year lease, didn't they? I think it was a 99-year lease with them, too. Chris Finnerty, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that. And then Joseph Newhouse, thank you so much. Says, hey, you talked about the mega floods yesterday. I made a follow-up video. Please enjoy. I will, Joseph, and thank you. Miss Honeybee, thank you for subscribing. Beeble Dog, again, welcome to the Marfia. And then Rose Adams, thanks, Marf and Dex. Appreciate that. Thank you over on D-Live, everybody that has now popped in. It looks like we have Bucket of Rocks, Catherine D., thank you, Release the Quacken, Kelly2334, Kimbria. It says, hi, everyone. Good evening. Yobi, Tremendous Moss. We've got Vicky K over there, Cookielicious. It's J562, Kelly2334. Thank you for your attendance. I appreciate you. Bear Claws, For the Glory of Christ. Cut the BS. Vengo54, Release the Quacken. Again, thank you. Thanks, Wages. Again, said thanks. And Kelly2334 again. Thank you guys for supporting. Let's see here. And Ross Adams again. I'm sorry, I called you Rose Adams. I apologize. All right. Let's move on. We have another piece here. This is saying that Xi Jinping's Saudi trip seeks to exploit Riyadh-Washington tensions. Dex, do you want to cover this? This is again something that we have talked about prior. In fact, you've commented on this quite a bit in the past.
Well, we just saw our administration take a trip over there a few weeks back to SA and meet with leadership, and of course, everybody thought it was about getting more production of oil and helping the problem that we seem to be having. But it didn't seem like his trip was all that well received, and there was a lot of turmoil going into it, and a lot of consternation coming out of it. So it's kind of crazy that Xi, who really hasn't been seen in public and has been hiding out for a long time, is now actually thinking about actually going there and doing, a trip. And obviously on the backs of this previous trip, it seems like another opportunity for him to move in and maybe set up another 99-year lease, right? We'll have to see what actually comes from it, but it's definitely, from a geopolitical point of view, it's an eye opener in the sense that, we were there trying to do this. They're one of our biggest allies. And then, it wasn't that well received. And now, he's going to swoop in, or he's talking about swooping in and doing an in-person effort to try to improve their own diplomatic relations there.
And it seems like, some of these places are not doing deals with us. They are accepting the calls of Xi. Several countries that over the past have basically just ignored us and gone with Xi. It kind of shows you who's more important to answer now. Hopefully that's not the truth. All right, we have our next caller, and it looks like we have Tremendous Moss. Wants to talk about local machines switching satellite services by Evra's, a Vlad-owned company in Colorado. This should be interesting. Let's get Tremendous Moss on, and while you're getting her on, I just want to remind everybody there is a way to protect yourself against a CME, just as we talked about with wages, and an EMP. In fact, EMP Shield is the same company that's working with agencies like DoD, DHS, and of course the DEMSO team helping protect Texas Grid. You can go over to EMP Shield at marfooglenews.com/EMP, and you can get a device that not only can protect your car, you can get one for your home, you can get one for your boats, your RVs, your motorcycles, anything that you want to keep running after an EMP or a CME, then you would want to have one of these wired in. They also work for solar systems. There's all kinds of different devices for different things. And it is the only company that does a EMP shield for the Energy Solar Generator. In fact, the Energy Solar Generator is the only solar generator you can get one of these on. It is a custom EMP shield meant for the in and the out. That way it grounds the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it can fry your car, your device, your motorcycle, your RV, whatever you're putting this on, it will protect it. So go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP, get the good stuff that, of course, the people above us are getting. We can also have access to that now. marfooglenews.com/EMP. It's a veteran-owned business. It's 100% American-made. So make sure to go check it out. Down to the screws. It's an amazing company. It is employing and it is growing. When we started with them, they were in a tiny little building in Kansas hand making them. They're still hand making them, but now they're a whole lot bigger after all of those government contracts. So again, this is a really great company. They even sent us Christmas videos at one point. It's really, really awesome people. Everybody who has dealt with them in the past knows this. So go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. All right, let's get Tremendous Moss on the phone, and it looks like they have some concerns. So let's see. Tremendous Moss, you're live on Marfoogle News.
Adam, what's up, bro?
So what's going on with your lotto machines?
Yeah, so touching on something that Wages was just talking about makes me think that, our satellites are being screwed with, because I had a technician come out today to switch our satellite that runs the lotto machine to a different location. And so I'm thinking that the sun has screwed with and destroyed the one that had been running off of, and they had to come out and switch it to a new one.
So either the sun or something else destroyed whatever satellite that was normally running your machines, and then they possibly switched it to something else. Is that what you're saying? Exactly.
Because I've been there for 7 years now, and we've never had this issue. And this is the first time anyone's ever come out to check on the satellite that points towards whatever the lotto machine runs off of. So it was really weird, especially after me hearing Wages segment there.
Well, yeah, and by the way, there's been a ton of solar activity. I mean, the last 5 months, it's just been almost every week we have something crazy popping off. And this isn't even the crazy stuff yet. We're talking about once you get into the X storms, it's a whole nother story. That's why everybody hopes it's not going to happen. But unfortunately, solar events happen on a regular basis, and they're almost like clockwork. They happen on average about every 140 years, and it's been like 150 since our last Carrington level event. So it's not good, but even if it went 200-300 years, most of us will see some horrible event in our lifetimes, and it will be a question of if the U.S. is prepared for that by the time, or if the world is prepared for that. Now, you also had a comment under here about Evraz, Vlad-owned company in Colorado. What's the deal with that? And you noticed something about that?
Yes, so I know multiple people who work for the company, and they are trying to sell off most of their North American assets because there has been one of the CEOs that has been tied to Vlad. And because of the sanctions and whatnot, they are trying to sell off all of the North American assets. And so here where I'm at in southern Colorado, we have a huge steel mill, and they're trying to sell that off along with all of the rest of their North American assets. Which
is owned by Vlad's country. And now, because of some sort of effect of the sanctions, or maybe they're just trying to get out of the U.S., they are selling off all of their stuff. Now, is that obviously the steel mill? If they can sell it to somebody who works in the U.S. or a company in the U.S., that would be good. But what happens if that company just goes to kaput? Are a lot of people like your friends going to lose their jobs?
Yeah, there's at least like 1,000 people that work for the steel mill here locally. So, yeah.
And
they'll probably lose their jobs.
Is it a larger town or is it a smaller town?
About 100,000 people.
Okay. Well, that's about 1% of the population would lose their jobs. That is.
Yeah. They are the largest, company here. They're the biggest, supplier of jobs. So it would be a huge loss.
Well, I know towns where I've visited many times over in Washington. There's, of course, the Ocean Shores community, the Westport community. That whole area just got absolutely upended because the logging stopped, and the logging took the rug from out underneath everyone there. It used to be a very prosperous logging community, and the entire, everybody knew somebody that worked for the logging companies and, did that business, and that industry was thriving. All of a sudden, they stopped the logging, and then boom, it was like everyone went into extreme poverty. I mean, if anybody who's drove around that area, you'll see. I mean, we're not even talking about like in the ghetto kind of poverty. I mean, like where roofs there's holes in the roofs and overgrown houses to the point you don't know there's a house there. I mean, it's really, really bad, and people are struggling to even get by because there's no business. There's one street in, one street out, and essentially that whole area has just been decimated. So I hope that doesn't happen there. Of course, you guys are lucky enough to have a pretty good population. That's not a small population by any means. 5,000 would be a small town. 100,000, that's a small city. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't end up being that bad. Good tip though. EVRAS, Avras, are selling out their steel mill. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to say before you go?
In all of North America too. They're trying to sell out all of North America, all of their assets.
Well, it does make sense. I just wonder if that's because they're made to do this, or if the country is saying, hey, if Vlad is looking at all of the Vlad-owned or country-connected companies and then pulling them out. That would be kind of, wouldn't you think that would be a sign of something bigger coming?
Definitely. Yes. And also because this plant specifically has been making rails like for trains. So it's a rail mill.
Oh, so,
and so
it would screw up transportation.
Our entire like northwestern train is just going to be shut down unless someone buys it and continues to build these rails.
Tremendous Moss, can you update us when you find out what happens? Since you have friends working there, you'll probably be one of the first people to know. In fact, if you can see if they can tell you, like give you an update, it's not going to be good if they have an unfortunate update, but if there's a good update and it gets bought out, they will know before anybody else. Can you update us on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Because if it applies to
them, I hope
them,
it does come to that. I hope
apply to everybody.
They get bought out before that and continue building the rails, because that's kind of necessary for us to ship stuff through trains. But yes, if I have any updates, I will absolutely call back in.
Well, just one more point is, like, why do we have other countries that we've never really seen eye to eye on? Why do we have, critical infrastructure stuff, weapons, military stuff being made in Xi's country, transportation and critical infrastructure made by other countries that are, companies that are directly tied to our enemies, making this critical infrastructure type of stuff? I don't know if that's exactly what's happening, but it seems like it, and we've covered a lot of stories like that. Well, Tremendous Moss, thank you for your call today, and I appreciate you giving us a chance to let us know first, and then make sure if you do get an update, let us know. We'll get you on the phone and get an update in.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thank you so much. Tremendous Moss from Colorado. And then we have how West Coast residents should prepare for the threat of a tsunami. It says, when most people hear the word tsunami, they may imagine a massive wave, but that's actually a misconception that researchers in Washington state are trying to correct. Since the state's coastline is at risk of being hit with a devastating tsunami following an earthquake of a magnitude 7.5, the state is trying to educate the public of what it would actually look like. Now, this is not the Cascadia they're talking about. We actually covered this also as well. There is a separate thing here. So it says the Washington State Department of Natural Resources released a wave simulation study in July and shared a bit of startling news. A tsunami in the Puget Sound could engulf Seattle's shoreline, leaving it under more than 20 feet of water within minutes. Several videos released along with the study illustrate how an earthquake-triggered tsunami would most likely cause water to inundate the coastal areas around Seattle. From land, a tsunami functions and looks more like a storm surge from a hurricane than a tidal wave. So instead of this vision in your head of a 30-foot wave, this one in particular will just be this water that comes in and it just doesn't stop. Like they said, a storm surge. It says that's been something that these videos, I hope, help kind of pull the curtain back on, help educate not only the public, but also the emergency manager and anyone who's interested in tsunamis to understand how they behave geographically over time. It says all it takes is a few feet of water on the mainland to devastate a community, according to experts. It says tsunamis are an unusual series of powerful, moving, and extensive increases of water that can be expected following a locally felt earthquake or something far away as a South Pacific island volcano. It says that was Dave Snyder, Tsunami Warning Coordinator for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. It says in the U.S. there are over 90 million people living in coastal counties, including more than 30 million on the West Coast. While tsunamis big enough to flood North America are rare, the data from Washington's study concludes that tsunami waves could reach the shoreline in fewer than 3 minutes. That's, again, in many areas of western Seattle, including parts of Bainbridge Island, Elliott Bay, and Alki Point. So all the beautiful places that you've visited in Seattle, they would all be underwater. It says inundation and strong currents have the potential to continue for more than 3 hours from the start of the earthquake. So when people think of the Cascadia, many people do have the misconception that the Cascadia would come in. Cascadia would cause Puget Sound effects. Seattle, mainly from the Cascadia 9+ earthquake that will happen. It's a guarantee. It's a matter of time. That one is actually out in the ocean, and the Puget Sound is in kind of this cove and all these landways. This other earthquake, which it's funny, they don't even mention what earthquake it is. There's the Seattle, it's the Seattle fault line, which we've talked about, is capable of 7.5. That one will instantly send water in. All of the Puget Sound and all the little water waves, all that water will be shot right inside and onto the coastlines. That's something that people do not even think about that live here. Most people don't even know what the Seattle fault line is. It says the West Coast is considered to be at very high risk for these phenomena because of the tectonic plates that meet in this part of the country. Large earthquakes in these areas can cause the seafloor to rise and spark a tsunami. According to the National Weather Service, it says the U.S.'s most damaging tsunami was caused by the Great Alaska Earthquake of 1964, which was a magnitude 9.2. A 7.5 earthquake striking in the area is very unlikely in any given year, but it is possible. Although the chances of this happening in our lifetimes is low, it's important for families to get prepared now. It's kind of funny how they say that, and they say, even though it's low, get prepared now. Dax, go ahead.
Was striking to me on this, Adam, is this was like front page news on a handful of sites today, and it's not like this isn't new to us. We've talked about this numerous times, right? This isn't new at all. But why are they pushing this type of messaging right now? Is there something coming that we don't know, or are they thinking about something and trying to get this message out? For this to be, so front and center, and it wasn't just me. I heard it from numerous people. Some of our mods told me that they saw it as the front page story for them as well. It's kind of interesting. And then the other comment, I think I saw this was from Cypher9, reiterating that a lot of people have said this too, is that when we get CMEs, we tend to have, there tends to be some sort of correspondence to that and, earthquakes or potentially tsunamis, right? So is there, are they thinking that something may be happening, or are they trying to prepare more people without doing it in such a, a frightening way?
Well, and they're saying, it's very low. You're totally fine, but prepare now. Okay. We've covered this before. I showed you the map. It shows this crazy influx. I mean, it's nuts. The simulation looks absolutely horrendous. It covers parts of land. Land disappears. There's all these tiny little kind of islands and things that just go, boom, underwater. So as far as this goes, it's like it's just subtly going into everybody's top page, and it's like they read this and they go, prepare now. Maybe it's their way of getting people prepared or getting people up to speed on it. I don't know. I think about the back end meeting of why was this article pushed so hard, but you never know. All right, and then let's see here. Dex, let's talk about the web-only content. We've got lots of great stuff. And also, I want to remind you guys, you can go to marfooglenews.com/C4H to go and support Cars for Heroes. If you didn't see yesterday's show, you can feel free to go over and watch that. Lots of great stuff. Apparently, already 2 cars have been donated from the Foogle family. Those will go to vets. So pretty amazing. Dex, let's go over the web only and the overflow. And then, of course, tons and tons of crazy stuff here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So we continue, as we said in the last few shows, the heat is on, so to speak, in Florida. There's a lot of updates, on both sides, coming out from both sides about, what are they going to release? What are they not going to release? Why can't they release it? What things were taken, what things were returned, like passports, stuff like that. It's all of this information and much more around this topic is right here on our website. So go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and you scroll down till you get to this overflow section. This is where the rest of the story is. If you're on YouTube, just open that description and click on the show notes link. It'll take you right here. And when you get past there, you'll get to all the caller information too. It's all there and ready to go too. Lots of other stuff, as we're moving into this, this is a major year for the politicians. So there's all this stuff that's going to be building up between now and November. We're going to see a lot more coverage of that. So you'll continue to see more of that here. There's a little bit coming out about what's happening there. And then there's some other updates, things that are going on with the wealthy and what are they doing, and especially the booming in the ranch market, some stuff happening with Amazon, and some other things about bang bangs and who's buying them, and as well as a very interesting story about DNA and the mythical origins of wild horses. So all of this information, there's like an entire show's worth of content here. So make sure you go check it out. We spend the time to put this together. We put all of this other information here for you. Anything that we couldn't get into the show, too much information that we didn't have, we want to make sure you have it. So just go to the website, click on the thumbnail for the show, scroll down to that overflow, and you will find the rest of the story, everything else.
And another story in particular, it says, T-Man, our former president, says terrible things are going to happen in the U.S. after sneak attack raid. So another thing to point out, the FBI and the government actually put out a warning stating that there is an extremely high risk of something very bad happening. So just be ready for anything, and we mean anything. We warned you. Keep your heads on a swivel. Thank you, Dex, for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And a few more people to thank. Again, Linda C., thank you so much. Ho Operator, YJ, Overlander. It's not much, but I appreciate your content and reporting style, Mr. Marfoogle. I love it. And I don't know why. Mr. Marfoogle just sounds so much more classy. Johnny Harmon, happiness is nice, joy is better. Marley. It looks like Marley. Marley, thank you so much. Overcoming bipolar with Jesus. Love you guys. This is a great... sorry, it cut it off. Hold on. This is a great community. Thank you so much. Overcoming bipolar with Jesus. I appreciate you, and I hope you got lots of great people over there. Carol Quanstrom. Hey, y'all, from Houma, Louisiana. Thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate you. Joseph Newhouse. Hey, you talked about the mega floods. Got a new video out. Joseph Newhouse, if you haven't checked it out, he's got a new video out on mega floods. FG, if bang bangs kill people, then my pencil failed my test. FG, that's an amazing point. Yeah, well, do you remember when the gentleman who ran his SUV into the crowds and things were so charged as far as color goes? They said that the SUV, what was it? It was like Ford Explorer, hits people, and everybody's like, is the Ford Explorer going to get rang in on charges? Like, are they going to charge the Ford Explorer? They would not say even what, they wouldn't even say the person's name. That was huge. All over Twitter, people are making fun of it, like, basically saying every news outlet didn't want to say that it was a certain type of person, and it was just absurd. Ross Adams, thank you. FG, Joseph Newhouse, Linda C., Vic, Laura Shepard, and everybody else on DLive. Kelly2334, thank you for continuing to support. Thank you for holding it down there, Vicky K. I appreciate it. Bear Claws, For the Glory of Christ, Release the Quacken, always a pleasure. Queen BTP, thank you for subscribing, getting that Marfia badge again. Thank you. It looks like everybody that supported tonight has that Marfia badge. Thank you guys so much. Chance Paladin, Jammer, Wonder Woman, and everyone else over on DLive. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. And then, of course, Jason78, Lisa R. Hall, CJ Blaze. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And Trinity, Rip Curl, Bones, everybody else, thank you guys. Have a good night. And Dex, thank you so much. Whitetail7, thank you. You guys have a wonderful night. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Welcome, Linda Wilcox. Thank you for subscribing. Douglas Strother. David Smith. Thank you for subscribing. Honest, trustworthy Nigerian Prince. Thank you for subscribing. That's the sentence I don't hear. Bring it back. Oh, no fear. Lisa Wilcox. Lisa Wilcox, Affinity. Thank you for watching me. Back, I'm back on the way. Honey bee, bulldog, and roast that door. Everybody wanna go on now. Everybody wanna know that. Everybody really wanna know that. Going right back in the play like a guy. Everybody really wanna know that. Going right back in the play like a guy. Everybody really wanna know that. Going right back in the play like a guy. But then I go about her stone, real high school, got the pie. Michelle can run and stiletto in the white. They're 7 R&B and S tonight. That's Stevie, El Doggo, and a fade. I'll fade away. I wanna be in a BB. Just on the back, on the wet now. I girl, keep her in the wet now. Step on. Yesterday, that's how we do it the Marfoogle way. We do the day's news yesterday, that's how we do it the Marfoogle way. CJ Blaze, gonna bring it ways, CJ Blaze gonna bring it ways, and we're gonna say goodbye.